It's August 8th, 2022. This is Roqe. Hi there. Hello. Salam Dostan Aziz. Durud bar Shama. Welcome to a special edition of Roqe. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. This is the Talking to Persians preview show. What am I talking about? Next week, August 15th. On our YouTube channel, we are launching our new video travel series, Talking to Persians. Of course, you'll be able to hear the audio version here on our podcast platforms as well. Talking to Persians this August, August 15th next week on our YouTube channel. I'm Jian, that's Captain Reza.
Hello,
sir. The fabulous Kyan is here.
Hi, Jian.
And Groovy Shaya.
Hi, Aziza.
So last September, we trekked off to London, England, my birthplace, to shoot the pilot episode of our travel series that's premised upon finding, interviewing, integrating with Persians in different urban centers of the world. It's documentary style, directed by the fabulous, you can't all be fabulous. Directed by the enigmatic and wonderful Reza Sholeh, also known as Captain Reza. And I'm out there talking to folks. Kyan was with us as an associate producer as well. So today we're doing a little preview chat about what you're going to see starting next August 15th.
That's right.
So our job in this podcast is to entice people.
That's right.
To check next week.
Oh boy.
To get ready for the launch of our Talking to Persian series. Reza, what are you most excited about people experiencing?
The ending of it, actually. The ending of the series. The ending of actually segments of it too. Like people, I'm very curious to see what people think, because I was shocked and you were shocked. I mean, we can't give too much away, right? We can't. But suffice it to say, we wanted to make a cool, fun travel show about food, music, culture, community, Iranian diaspora. And but it was a lot more, and it became a story that is just has an incredible ending.
Well, we did want the depth that we to really kind of explore the Persian diaspora and the different communities within the diaspora. And we certainly learned that London has a particular kind of Iranian community that isn't that first of all that the Iranian communities in the diaspora are not all homogenous. They're not all the same. I mean, we sort of knew that, but we certainly really know that now.
Yeah.
Like I would say that the London Persian community ain't the same as the Toronto one or the LA one, etc. But secondly, so we want to explore that, and we sort of want to use this series. It's twofold, the mission: one to find the Persians and the community, but to also discover the place that we're going to.
That's right.
In this case, London being more familiar to me, but as we build out this travel series and go to some places in the world that we don't know as well, it's going to be about discovering the city that we're in and discovering the city that we're in through the Iranians that we find.
That's right.
So what we didn't know. And I guess having we've all in some capacity or another worked in documentary fashion before. What we didn't know is part and parcel part of the idea, which is that you can never plan exactly what's going to happen because you don't want to. You want to let things develop as they do. And there is a twist in this one. Now we can't. This is a weird podcast to do because we're doing the preview, but we can't give away the whole thing because we want you to see it next week, starting August 15th. But there's a twist in this one. There's a revelation that goes in a wild direction, and that leads to an ending that, as you talk about,
and sort of determines the narrative, like changed in a shaped, not changed, that shaped the narrative of the project. Really, it was supposed to be something a little bit more light, and but the idea was supposed to be deep. We didn't want to delve too deep into it because how much you can do within like 50 minutes of screen time, but
The show is the film is about almost an hour long.
That's
Yeah,
right,
so, yeah.
all together. But overall,
Although
when
we have hours and hours of footage.
we
Oh,
do,
God,
and we're
do
gonna be
we?
stuff that
Hours of
really
footage
ended-
of
yeah.
Kyan
Some-
trudging around
in high
fields
heels
in high
in
heels.
front of Buckingham Palace.
Hey, I can run a marathon in high heels. It's a skill, my friend.
We should. I don't know what part of this preview is the part where we get to what it was like. We're kind of doing this renegade style. So Reza's got the camera, and I've got headphones on with a microphone in my hand, and Kyan's carrying things with and
Who would think that I would be the one carrying the
yeah, you were
bags?
carrying the equipment. But the funniest part is we go, okay, let's meet at Charing Cross Tube outside of there, and we're going to go to Ruislip for this shoot. And Reza and I be waiting there, and then we see Kyan coming in
Wearing
9-inch heels and with a
Sombrero.
ball gown,
At some
a wedding dress, and we're like, Kyan, we need to shoot at a field right now.
Oh my god! At some
Not me.
point,
He's
we
like,
were
I'm
at
Persian. What do you want me to do?
Kyan, yeah. At some point, we were at some pretty rough parts of town, and we were dark. People were shouting, and Kyan literally was wearing a wedding dress. I think we were we were joining you for
legit.
dinner, I think, at a restaurant. And I was
Someone
like, Kyan,
get
I
on
can't. They're gonna get killed. They're gonna murder us.
They were like, "Did you just get married, honey?"
They
No,
were
I
saying
did
that to
not.
her in the street.
And there was the time when we were, getting around London can be difficult at times. So, and I'm a big enthusiast of the tube, the subway
I
there.
know.
So I was like, come on, let's take the tube. And you guys, it was your first time in London.
It was my
Was
first
it
time
your
in
first time?
London.
No,
No.
it wasn't. You've been there many times, but we go and we take the tube, and Reza and I have been taking the tube from place to place. But the one time Kyan comes down, we leave, and I go, wasn't that great? Don't you enjoy the tube? And she's like, I'll never do that again. Yeah, I realized that I don't think Kyan's ever taken the subway in Toronto. It's
I
just
have. Come on.
it's
Yeah, it was when we got out of because neither you hadn't taken the tube either, Kyan, right? You'd been to London a bunch of
yeah,
times.
I
but
had
she
not
usually by
taken the
chariot.
tube. No.
She goes from place to place. Yeah.
It was both the first time we got out. I was so excited. I was like, "This is you see, Kyan." Like my first time was pretty cool too. What did you think? She felt like the way she answered. It was as if okay, I saw this museum. I don't have to come here.
Yes,
again.
I think
Once
she's
in a
experienced
lifetime.
the tube once
Yeah.
with the little people. Yes.
Can I get the limo?
One time was enough.
Yeah, and so we gave ourselves a little over a week, and we were running around London. Now, in some cases, you'll see that we've planned the guests that we're going to speak to.
That's right.
And we tried to build as much of a cross section as we can. Of course, it's impossible when you're doing this kind of a doc format to speak to everybody, but we think we got a cross section. So and we got some people who are really grounded in London and in the Persian culture of London and the community there. So, for example, Nazanin Ansari, who is the editor of Kyan London, Kyan Life, we talked to her, and she's been in London for 4 decades or something, and Shirley El Ghanian, who is the
Chair of
Magic of Persia, is her organization. In fact, she. And it is exactly what that the title is. She's made it her mission and her organization's mission to spread the magic gospel of Persia. And a lot of her artifacts and what she has are in her home, which we went to visit.
That's right.
Which was quite an
lovely.
experience.
Incredible.
It was just
The trip was almost worth it for that. I mean,
I
just
know.
being in
I
Shirley's
know.
home was
Yeah.
fantastic. So there's folks like that, and then there's artistic types. Our friend Ali Azimi. We went to the music store where he shops and where he practices. He gets his guitar stuff, and we kind of had a little jam session there.
Yeah. You and Ali played actually.
Ali and I
Pretty
played.
good. Not bad.
They play
You know what?
live.
You know, it's funny. We were playing
one
a
of his
song
songs,
together. He
yeah.
was teaching me a song. He was like, "This is a song," and then we shot this last
Yeah,
fall,
yeah, yeah.
and it ends up being the song that's on his new album.
That's
right.
right.
Oh.
Yeah,
Now you can
He
hear
didn't
the
use your vocals for it. I mean, it worked.
We weren't
Sounded
recording.
pretty good.
bastard. He did. Now that I
he?
think about it,
You could have been a millionaire. Jian.
yeah. And then we visit another artist named Afshin Nalkoni.
Yeah.
And if
Amazing
folks,
visual art.
he is just he's a visual artist, a painter, and his work is just spectacular.
Stunning.
Remember, we went to his studio,
Yeah.
and you can't wait for you guys to see this on film because it is you get a taste of his work and his process, and it was wonderful. We went to his studio, then we went to a gallery where some of his work is shown.
Displayed, and it's just his thought process and his ideas on identity that is showcases through art. It's so interesting because you look at his art and you come up with a lot of questions. Really, like personally, like for me, it was like that. And I think like listening, like going through the interviews, like editing it over and over again, it really I really enjoyed it. Really
Afshin
enjoyed
is
this
a
conversation.
brilliant man.
Incredible
Mostly
man.
because he's an Arsenal fan. Like myself.
Naturally.
we knew of each other, but we weren't close friends before this trip. And I can tell you that since this trip last fall, Afshin and I like daily are on WhatsApp doing Arsenal talk every day.
Finally found
Every day.
someone, Gian. Oh, I'm so happy for you.
Gian has a new friend.
There's a happy ending, guys.
New Arsenal.
I finally have a friend.
New Arsenal friend.
And then there's a guy named Bijan Danishman.
That's right.
And if you don't know that name, you definitely know him because he's been in so many different films and TV series, and he's in the new Game of Thrones series that's coming out.
That's right.
Enter the Dragon, not
It's
Enter the
coming-
Dragon.
Yeah,
Enter the Dragon is
Enter
Bruce Lee.
Dragons.
No,
When's it
something
coming
else.
out? It's
Something
coming
with
out soon.
Dragon.
Something with a dragon. But it's a spin-off of
Yeah,
or a
and he's one of the
prequel.
yeah, and he should be in Game of Thrones because he
should be.
talks like such an important English voice, and he has some amazing things to say as somebody who's been in London for decades about how he still identifies as an Iranian.
As an Iranian, and he also paints too. Like
he's also a painter, and he's done this
Damovan
series of Damovan paintings.
Very simple, like painting.
Your mountain,
concept.
Shaya. Damovan.
Yeah.
You have a fondness for
Yes.
Damovan. And Shian Naseri, our friend
Naseri.
from Manitou and broadcaster and social media star, and Sepp Osley, who's remember the band Blurred Vision, who did
right,
Hey Ayatollah, the takeoff on Another Brick in the Wall by Pink Floyd. He's relocated to London. Sepp comes from Iran and was in Toronto for a while. They were a Canadian band, but they've been in London for a while. So he's there. He takes us to one of his favorite cafes in Soho.
Cafes. And he had us try one of his favorite
Chicken liver pate.
There
was
you
it?
go.
Yeah.
Kyan remembers.
A couple of us tried it.
Which Kyan refused. Like, you know how
Some
bad
great
it is
Keon moments
when
on camera. when
is a bit-
I'm a woman
Keon
of
caught
good
not wanting to
taste.
eat food that, not wanting to go on the. So it's you not wanting to do a lot of things,
Like-
not wanting to go on the tube, not wanting to eat.
I know what I like in my life, okay? I'm just very particular.
But it was a funny moment.
There's some great moments. I mean, we can't.
The
there's only
British
so much we can-
Museum was a highlight for me, let me
Yeah,
say.
British
Doing
Museum.
that tour with Roqe Arab was
Those
a
Persian
revelation.
artifacts that are in the British Museum. Should we spoil that? Should we do the spoiler on?
Nah,
no,
let's
that's
save
not.
it.
Let's
There's a
not.
major
Spoil it.
artifact that we went to see, and there's a twist on what happens to that.
It's all
But-
Kyan's fault.
Roya Arab, who's an archaeologist and of course a musician that we love, took us through the British Museum. There's an academic, a Professor Nargis Farzad, who's wonderful in terms of what she brings informationally about Iranians in London and her experience and what she's learned academically as well. But she also takes us to this church near Trafalgar Square
yeah.
that has an Iranian connection, believe
That's
it or
right.
not.
A
And
direct
so-
Iranian connection.
It's really, really, really cool. It's funny because I'm describing all of these things. It almost makes it sound like we had a plan.
I know,
like we
but
knew what the
No.
fuck we were doing.
None of it.
There was
none
no
of it.
plan. There was.
That's
I mean,
what's
we have it.
amazing
This
about
is the pilot of what we intend to be a series.
Yeah.
And truth be told, if anybody's listening right now, maybe we shouldn't be saying this, but we really didn't.
No, we didn't know what we were
we
doing.
kind of knew that we had to go and try this to see what this turns into. So right now it sounds like, oh, they went to all these places with these guests, and at the time it was like, how about there's a church and we're gonna go and we're gonna find.
Truth be told, we can sort of lay it out for the audience to understand the process of it. We didn't know what to expect, right?
Yeah,
We went to London and just got exposed to an overwhelming slew of adventures and interesting people, crazy surprises. where because the camera kept rolling, was all captured.
And these are all folks who live in London.
That's
so
right.
they all
It's all
have
folks that live in
one
London.
idea or another. There's a woman named Anushka Rava who
Comedian.
has become a great friend of ours. She's a comedian. It's very funny, a very, very great personality, and she has chosen to live in London despite having lived in a number of other places in her life, but also grew up in London. And we go to this area of London. Folks who are listening to us right now in England and in London will know this, but there's an area called North Finchley where the Persian community is now, and we go there and we discover a bunch of
what would it be?
Jaya Shwa we spent an afternoon at all the. You see a little bit of it on the video on the film, but we go to a number of different places. Although you also realize, to just speak a sidebar to the Toronto audience, you realize how big and impactful the Persian community in Toronto has gotten, because when they say in London, one of the most important cities in the world, a huge cosmopolitan metropolis, when they say, "Oh, this is where you're going to see the Persian community," and you go there and it's like 10 stores and a couple of restaurants on one street, you think this is like a Kuche in Toronto. Yeah, I mean, you really get a sense of how big it is here now.
And influence, like people in Toronto are very influential, and we like the second generation of Iranians, they're growing and taking over really in every which industry. Where I don't see, like in London, like it seems like still is not very.
It's an older community there.
It is an.
I mean, it's a community that's been there longer. That's the big noticeable takeaway. In Toronto now, there's hundreds of thousands. There's folks who've just come in the last 15 years, some of whom not only do not speak English, do not need to speak English because the community has translated itself here. I'd like them to speak English and integrate more, and I think it'd be a good thing, but they don't. In London, that wasn't really the case. No. The folks there are quite many of the folks. I mean, obviously there'll be some newcomers, and we found some in North Finchley, but for the most part, they are integrated into English society a lot more.
That's right. It's interesting for me how Iran, like we're all Iranians, right? But Iranians in London, Paris, we all have different vibes, Iranians in Toronto, Iranians in LA. It's so interesting to see how they have their own identity in a way that's different from ours.
Did you go to Buckingham Palace as well?
We did go to Buckingham Palace.
And we met some very...
Well, actually, the day we went to Buckingham Palace, once Kyan got her pumps unstuck from the dirt.
That's right.
This was last fall, so you'll see in the film a few things. Once again, talking to Persians, London, next week, August 15th, or depending on when you're listening to this, tomorrow, August 15th. There's a couple of things that are hallmarks of fall 2021. One of them is we're, in some cases, wearing masks. When we're on the tube, we're wearing masks, for example, because it's mid-COVID. But another thing is that there was still you remember the Britney Spears...
Free Britney movement.
The movement which was hoping to... what do you call it, the conservatorship or something?
She had a conservatorship
with her father.
And
so Britney Spears fans have for years been trying to free Britney from the chains of her father. And of course there's the subtext of Britney and her Persian paramour, who's become her husband now. But so as we were going to Buckingham Palace, there's a Free Britney protest happening for some reason outside of Buckingham Palace.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Britney was listening. But they were wonderful, and so and Reza says, I said, Reza, you got to shoot this, and Reza starts screaming at them, "Come on, walk this way, guys!" And he's like filming the Free Britney folks.
Reza
and then
was like the leader of the movement. Like, what do we want? Free Britney.
I've never seen Reza as excited about anything in his life as
I was
freeing
rooting
Britney.
for Britney, and it worked.
So we end up interviewing someone who's a
non-binary person who identifies as a non-binary, not a man or woman, and was a huge fan of
Brittany.
Brittany,
And
obviously, but
Persians.
also Persians.
As it turns
A
out.
non-Persian. There's a
Non-Persian
number
who
of
loves
non-Iranians
Persians.
in
Yeah.
this. There's a couple of nights where we're wandering around in Soho, and I'm asking people what they think of Iranians to mixed results. And we discover some interesting non-Iranians
Very.
and their views on Iranians.
Very interesting views, and it's so heartening and also enlightening to listen to different perspective, to see how like such a unique individual from a very, very different background than I am or any of us are, and upbringing thinks of us as nice, as you know what I mean?
I think
It's
it depends
I love
on
it.
what kind of Persian they dated.
Well, actually he said that, and he's dated a lot of them,
That's
a lot,
true.
and I quote.
They said that. Yeah.
They said
It's a
that.
fan.
It's so.
I love it.
There's a couple other things that we there's some significant Persian restaurants
Yeah.
that we go to discover Persian food in London. A couple of them have Michelin stars.
Can you believe that?
Right?
In fact, I think one of them we went to that happened to be close. We got lucky. We happened to be close to where we're staying, and we got some footage in the film of us inside this restaurant. I think, Kyan, you ended up going back there for
Oh my
like 3
God.
nights in a row. Or
It
something.
was so good that I kept going back just for a little late
really
night
was
snack.
good.
It was so
You know,
good.
but the thing is, it wasn't just good. It was hip.
Yeah,
it was like
cool.
you
It was a
wanted to
cool
hang
place.
out there.
That's
Not to take
right.
anything away from our wonderful Persian
Oh,
restaurant
hey, listen.
in Toronto, Los Angeles, Valley. Yeah, but it was such a cool hangout in there.
You see
yeah.
all these different young people from different cultures enjoying our food. It's like, that's right.
Although it was
You're welcome.
it was sort of Persian fusion, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
It wasn't
Yeah.
it was like
Spicy,
if
but
you
it
want the
was-
old school kubi there, you know.
Yeah, no,
they
it
were
wasn't. It was a bit of
They put
spice
some
stuff.
twists on it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's good. That was great.
But the
really good.
food, yeah, we go to a couple, 2 or 3 different Persian restaurants. I mean, I can't. I'm salivating thinking about how good that was. And then, of course, there's a subtext to the film that involves the fact that we decided that the pilot episode, as we say, of this Talking to Persians series would take place in London, partly because we thought it'd be too obvious to do this in somewhere like Dubai or Toronto or San Diego, but also because I grew up in London. I was born in London, and not only was I born in London, but I was born in a house in northwest London,
Yes.
and home birth.
Literally.
Yeah. My mom was progressive and said, why not, we don't have to go to a hospital. We had a midwife, and we did. So I've never been back to this home in my whole life since I was a little kid. And this was going to be the chance. And before we went and shot in the fall, I sat down with my mom, and we went on Google Earth and Googled the address to see if it's even still there. Maybe it's turned into a condo or a parking lot or a movie theater or, one of those gyms that Kyan goes to. And not only was it still there, but the exterior looked exactly the same. It was even the same color.
Wow.
It's a yellow house, and it was a yellow house back when it was the exterior of the house is painted yellow. A yellow little English house, tiny English house. So part of our thought was, and I don't think we didn't really even have this plan for sure, but
we didn't know
when
if
we
we
go
were
to
gonna do it.
London,
We
one
said
of the
if we have
options
time.
is yes,
If we have
if we have
time, we'll
time,
do
one of
that.
the options will be to go to
Yeah,
to
and
this
just
house.
have you walk, look at it, see your reaction,
Right.
and talk in front of
And in fact, we organized with Ali Azimi.
That's right.
Why don't you? And poor guy ends up driving us. We go out to Ruislip, northwest London, to go and find this house and just shoot it and see how I feel and all that. And
Well,
getting
a
to
lot
the
more than that.
well, what happens with the situation with the house is part of what makes for the unexpected parts of this documentary.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. And we can't say more than that, to be perfectly honest with you, because if we say anything, we're giving away too much.
Yeah.
But you're in for a ride, to say the least.
So Kyan, what was the takeaway, especially now that you look back at the footage? What was one of the things that you learn or that you hope that people take note of about the Persian community or what we discovered in London?
Not to generalize, like to me, when I think Persians, I think of Toronto or LA Persians, but the Persians in London, they have their own vibe. I don't know, everybody's different, but I got the sense that they're more,
substantial?
Substantial, yeah. I was like, what word can I use that isn't going to offend anybody?
You've insulted everybody except for the people in London, but that's
there
okay.
was a lot of depth to the Persians that we met there.
Maybe it was just the people we were interviewing, but it certainly did seem that way, didn't it?
Yeah.
No,
They were all very thoughtful. And, yeah.
Because even like the people that we interviewed because we interviewed some bystanders like in the streets and stuff like that, where their like opinions were very interesting and in depth. So I think it's a general geography thing. They're smarter.
What did same question to you, Reza? What did you this was your first time in London.
First time in,
so what was your takeaway? One of your takeaways, I'm sure you have many.
That the people, the migrants in London are a different breed of Iranians in a way. Like
How
I don't know. Like there is something. I don't know. Maybe it's because of the like London itself. They're more Londoner, but there are, as you said, like I have a very similar observation where they're very different from North American Iranians. Like I'm familiar even with the LA scene. Like it's similar to Canada, New York. Like
did you relate less to the London Iranians?
I did, but not in a bad way. Like it was more of a curious a thing for me. Like I was following my curiosity where I'm like, wow, this is like, there were a lot of things that was very interesting. Like even in general, like at a restaurant, we went to a lot of Persian restaurants. Not every restaurant has a liquor license. So we went to this Persian restaurant, lovely people invited us over, which has to do with why were we even invited to this Persian restaurant, Cabaret more, which you gotta watch and see. But they offered us, they put Red Bull in front of us. And because it's normal, like over there, if you want to drink, you got to bring it yourself. And then the guy asked me, he was like, if you want me, like I can go across the street and get a vodka or whatever. And that never happens at a restaurant here. Like and it's common over there. It's just those kind of things like would affect you up. I don't know, your behavior.
The one thing about I would caution us about, or one thing I realize in this process as well, is that there's an interesting, it's kind of a paradox when it comes to the Persian communities and what we've learned working on this program with the diaspora and my sort of exploration through all these interviews, etc. Is on the one hand, Roqe Media itself is predicated upon the idea that we have this commonality, that the Iranians, especially those of us outside of Iran in the diaspora, all feel connected to each other so profoundly. And we've seen that, we've learned that, and even in some cases feel connected with people in Iran. Like we have listeners of this program, as we've talked about, in Iran. But on the other hand, there's no Persian community anywhere that feels homogenous. Like we know, certainly in Toronto now, there's big divisions in our community. There's lots of different kinds of people. You couldn't, with one swath, as much as we say the LA Persians, the Toronto Persians, and that was true of London too, where we get some pretty contrasting opinions. And I think in your edit, Reza, you did a good job sometimes of showing that, where somebody says, I feel still like an Iranian, even though I've been here for decades. And the next moment somebody's saying, I just came 5 years ago, but I feel like a Londoner. I feel like and there's that constant contrast that suggests, there's the shopkeeper we talked to who says, let's say, do you get, enjoy the community here? Said, not really. I don't really get along with most of them.
That's right. And then Shirley Alanian, the chair, like the chair and founder of Magic of Persia, who's been there pre-revolution, she's all about making sure the community is together and hanging out with them. It's it's very, very fascinating.
You can't paint Iranians with one swath of paint. Yes,
it's hard. No.
That's the ultimate. Well, we're hoping everybody enjoys this as much as we have. Shaya, as the person who wasn't on the trip but heard about it and then presided over some of the editing, what was What was something that was surprising for you?
Actually, the diversity of the documentary for me was really interesting. Like the different type of people that you meet and you have a like dialogue with them. It was interesting for me. And also, I have an uncle who lived in London, and I don't know. By seeing those Persian that you were interviewing, all of them reminded me of my uncle. So I can get the sense that they have their unique identity in London.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I once again, Talking to Persians London debuts next week, or depending on when you're listening to this, in the next few hours, or 3 days ago, August 15th. This is the Talking to Persians preview podcast. We hope you enjoy it. It is on YouTube. We will be playing or posting the audio version on our podcast platform so you can listen to it as well. And I picked a whole bunch of music that I was sending to Reza that is played throughout it. That is, some will be familiar to people out there. That's, I think I tried to choose all of them as British artists. They're not all London artists, but and then we have some Persian music mixed in there as well. Next week, August 15th, do catch Talking to Persians London. The following week, we'll be back to our regular Roqe podcasts. But any final words?
Enjoy the show.
Enjoy the show.
Mizun bashi.
Mizun bashi. That is the final word. Thank you, Groovy Shaya. Thank you, Captain Reza. Thank you, the fabulous Kyan. This is full time for Roqe for today and the Talking to Persians preview podcast. Remember, for all things Roqe related, go to our website, roqemedia.com. roqemedia.com. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together each week and who worked on Talking to Persians as well. Sabi Roham, talented Anahita, the fabulous Kyan, Super Parisa, Smart Pega, Aghay Merdad, Captain Reza, and Groovy Shaya. We are going to be posting advanced clips of Talking to Persians moments over the next week in the days leading up to August 15th. So do check our Instagram and our YouTube sites if you want to see any of those. Thank you to all of you out there for supporting us and sharing our content. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. Find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi. And as ever, as Kyan says, Mizun Bashi.